Sam Mendes, welcome to Chicago.
Thank you very much.
So 1917, movie that sort of gives this story about World War I, these two soldiers, and I know that you got the inspiration from family. So can you talk about that a little bit? You co-wrote, by the way, and directed this one.
I did, yeah. It's the first time I've ever written a screenplay, and I wrote it with Christy Wilson-Cairns, but it was based loosely on stories my grandfather told me. He fought in the war, but didn't talk about it with his family, didn't talk about it with his kids, and it was only when he was in his late 70s he, for some reason, decided to tell his grandchildren, and I was one of them. And they were all fairly shocking stories, but they weren't stories of conventional heroism or bravery. They were all stories about how lucky he was to have survived and how his friends died standing next to him. Shocking for little kids to hear. But there was one story he told which is about carrying a message across no man's land in the mists, in the dusk, and that image of that one solitary man in that huge landscape surrounded by the dead really stuck with me. And when I came to sit down to write a movie for the first time, I found that was the story I wanted to tell, and I just thought, well, what if that man just kept going? If that message had to be delivered across a vast distance, and that became this movie. So it's not about my grandfather specifically, but it's because of him.
So I have to tell you, Sam, I'm sitting there and I'm watching the movie and it's like 10, 15 minutes in and I'm like, I don't think they've cut away. Like, this has been one take. The whole movie is one take. It's unbelievable. How do you film a movie in one take?
I love that reaction. That's my favorite reaction of the day.
Really? Yeah.
No, well, it's lovely that you realised it. Well, it's really. I didn't, when we first previewed the movie, I didn't want to tell people it was because I wanted to see how many people realised it. And what I most want is people get utterly lost in it in a slightly different way, and they're sort of not aware of it. And, I don't want to draw attention to the camera. I don't want to draw attention to the technique particularly. How do we do it? Well, with great difficulty. And there were days when, I thought, why have I done this to myself?
Yeah.
And it's difficult on two levels. It's not just difficult in a feat of engineering, just in terms of moving the camera and what it has to do during the course of the movie, but also that it not become repetitive or boring or draw attention to itself in a way. So I wanted to feel like this sort of very natural dance, so sometimes very intimate and sometimes very epic, and you see them miles away, and sometimes you understand the distance they have to travel and the physical difficulty of their journey, and other times it's about what you don't show. So it's a dance always, and it was really about the brilliance of the cinematographer Roger Deakins and the skill of the crew and a kind of massive group of us all trying to figure out what that dance was. But I hope when you come and see it that you're not thinking about it. You're just lost in it, and you realise that you have to experience every second tick on the clock ticking with the men, and you have to take every step with them.
And so a few things. So one, I would imagine the rehearsals were just insane to do something like this. And I was reading like Jeeps were involved and wire, like all kinds of stuff.
Sure, yeah. Well, the camera was on many different rigs, stabilized rigs, Steadicams, wires, Jeeps, motorbikes, drones. But the movement, the camera always, it should feel like one continuous fluid movement that never changes in a way. It doesn't change its style, And the rehearsals went on for a long time because we couldn't construct any sets until you walk the distances with the actors first. It's all very well saying they're walking along trenches, but you have to know when they turn left, when they turn right, and you can't cut away. So we dug over a mile of trenches, but only after we'd walked it on an empty field, sticking posts in the ground for where they would be. And we did that for every set, for farmhouses and orchards and woods and roads, canals, towns at night. Everything had to be measured on an empty space and then constructed. So we were rehearsing with the actors for months and building the sets as we went, and the whole thing evolved as a sort of single entity.
It's unbelievable, and like you said, it's kind of this idea that you experience the journey with them. You feel like you're kind of there the whole time.
Yeah, well, that's what I hope.
Yeah. And so people are saying Oscar buzz. Do you pay attention to that at all, or what are your thoughts?
Well, I'm very happy that it's part of the debate, because this movie hasn't opened yet, and I want people to come and see it in the cinema. And it's tough to get people to come out, to something that I feel is really designed and constructive as a cinematic experience. It's not a superhero movie, it's not a franchise, it's not an animated film, and these movies are few and far between these days. And so to be part of the debate at the end of the year, which is the best, and the dialogue and all the awards chat is great for the movie. I won't lie, and I'm delighted because I want to be part of that, you know, that environment at the end of the year. I want people to come and see for themselves and make up their own mind, you know.
So, I mean, you've been a part of so many fantastic movies. How do you sort of one up this one? Are you thinking, is your mind even there or no?
No, it's not there yet. Yeah, I'm still letting it go. I think that I enjoy this process because this is my way of saying goodbye to the movie.
Okay.
Talking about it to the point where in a couple of weeks I'll be like, I never want to talk about this movie ever again. So I'm not at that point yet. But what I tend to do is theatre is my home, and I will go back and I'll do a play and I'll work out if I have anything left to say about anything. But something will bubble up eventually. I think as you get older, you learn to trust that something will eventually arrive, but you can't rush it, you know, and you can't, if at this point I told you I was going to make next, I'll almost certainly be wrong.
Gosh, because I would say, I don't know how you one up this, but I'm sure you'll come up with it. Like you
Well,
said, it
we'll
may
see.
take some time. But Sam, so great to meet you. Thank you so much.
Great pleasure. Lovely to meet you.
You too.